Okay, so today we're going to talk about bar graphs. And before we start, I want to go through some of our unexpected and expected behaviors. Okay? So we're going to be using the smartboard with some PowerPoints. We're going to be taking some notes. We're going to be working with manipulatives. And we're going to be working with some math tools. So when we're thinking about all of those things we're working with, what are some of the unexpected behaviors? Those behaviors I don't want to see. Good.
Goofing off and talking.
Goofing off, because what does that do?
So you're not being respectful.
Right, it's disrespectful, it's distracting. Screaming. Not doing anything. Perfect. Okay, so let's look at the good stuff. What are some of the expected behaviors? What do I want to see? What shows that you're listening? What shows that you're a good student?
Paying attention to the teacher.
Paying attention.
Be quiet, wait for your turn.
Waiting quietly for your turn.
Not eating your math tools.
Not eating your math tools.
Raise your hand if you need to talk.
And raising your hand waiting for your turn. Great. All right, so let's get started. Nick, can you get the lights for us? We can see the PowerPoint up here. Okay, so today we're going to, like I said, talk about bar graphs. Our learning targets for the day are up on the board. The first learning target is to just know the parts of a bar graph. And most of you probably already know what the parts are, but you may not know the correct labels. So we're going to step it up today and talk about the actual names of all those different parts. And our second learning target is to collect data, which this will be our data today, M&Ms, and then we're going to make a bar graph using our data. Okay? Any questions? You need a pencil. If you don't have one, grab a pencil so that you can follow along with your notes. There's some pens up in the drawer if you need one.
I have pencils.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
So what is a bar graph? Okay, we're on the second slide on your notes. There should be some blank spots for you to fill in. Bar graphs are used to compare things. So if you think of what a bar graph looks like, it has those bars that are different levels, and you're comparing two things over an amount of time or using a quantity, but you're comparing what two things that are being measured. So for our bar graphs today that we're making, we're going to compare the numbers of colors in an M&M bag. So how many reds are there compared to how many blues? What are some other things that we could compare and show on a bar graph? What about, look around in the room. What do we have in here that's just our people that we could compare? Nick?
Boys, girls.
Boys versus girls. So our boy line would have 3, and our girl line would have 2. So we could compare how many boys versus how many girls using a bar graph. Ben, you got one? Or it doesn't have to be in this room, it can be anything.
How much birds there, how much hawks there are in eagles.
All right, hawks versus eagles. So you could just want to compare in the bar graph. You want 2 groups, 3 groups, 4 groups, you just are showing comparison.
Colored eyes.
Color of eyes. Or you could also say, how many siblings that people have. What's their favorite pets? Okay, there's lots of things we could compare. A bar graph is a visual display. That's what we're looking for. That's why when you're talking about colors, you want to use different colors. When you're making your lines, you want them to be nice and straight because we're using our eyes to look at this bar graph to show the visual side of it. And lastly, it helps us see the relationship very quickly. Those bars in that visual representation is an easy way to quickly look at where's the high and where's the low. Okay, we got all those filled in? Okay, moving on. Okay, so let's talk about the parts. The first part is this line here, and I know all of you have used them when we make line graphs or when we're plotting x and y. But here's the technical name. An axis. We have an x-axis and a y-axis. Who remembers which one's the x-axis?
X-axis is on the bottom.
On the bottom, right. Our x-axis goes across here. Okay, Ben?
The y-axis goes up, and you can tell by the memorize because the y-axis is still going up.
That is a good memory. So y and the actual y letter, there's a stick going up, which is a good way to remember. Thanks for that tip, Ben. Okay, so label on your note sheet the x-axis and the y-axis. X, y. Okay, are we all with me? The next one is one that we don't usually use the word scale too much. We usually just say let's number our y-axis. So that's just when we're stretching our learning. This number here is called the scale. And those scales can look differently. They can be, on this example, it's just 1, 2, 3. We could also do skip counting. Who can give me an example of skip counting? Nick?
2, 4, 6, 8, 10.
2, 4, 6, 8, 10. Damien, when do you think it would be appropriate for me to use a skip counting instead of numbering 1 to 3?
If the numbers are big,
If the numbers are big, that's right, or if we have a huge amount of data. If we were talking about how many people live in Bainbridge versus how many people live in Chagrin Falls, we would not want to say 1, 2, 3. Our bar graph would be enormous.
About 10,
We would use maybe, if we're talking about people who live in the city, what kind of numbers would we use?
100,000.
Hundreds of thousands, right, depending on the cities that we're comparing. So we definitely would not want to start with 1, 2, and 3. Okay, we all together? Yeah.
But of course, it's not going to be 1, 2, or 3, or 10 people.
That's right, so that's when we use those bigger numbers. You're exactly right. Another important thing to do, and it goes with the x and the y axis, is putting a label on those. So if we're using our example of the amount of people that live in Bainbridge versus Chagrin Falls, what would be our label down here? What would we be labeling our bars? Rachel?
Like how many people?
Close. We're on the right track. But what are we comparing?
The places where people live.
The places. So one might be Bainbridge and one might be Chagrin Falls. Now, Rachel, you're thinking up here. What's going to be on this side?
How many people?
Right, the actual numbers. So this is when we're going to have the 1,000, 5,000, 10,000, 15,000. Okay? So that's important to make sure that we're labeling so we know what we're talking about. The next one is another important thing, and it's going to be the title. Now the title tells us exactly what we have measured or compared. So I titled my PowerPoint today, What's in the Bag, because we're going to compare what's in a bag of M&Ms. If we're comparing the population of Bainbridge and Chagrin Falls, what could we call our graph? Amy, what do you think?
people in the, I say people in the area.
People in the area. I love it. That's perfect. So that people in the area tells us we're going to be doing a graph about people living in our towns. Okay? Are we all together? Excuse me. And lastly, the most important part to me on the bar graph would be our bars. Without the bars, we don't have a bar graph. And this is what shows us how visual these graphs are. Because without even looking, I can tell that the first number, without even looking at the data, I know that the second number is definitely smaller, just using the visual representation. Okay? All right. Here is an example of what a bar graph might look like. So I'll ask you some people to come up or to tell me what the parts are, and then on the next slide we'll come up and try to move them around. Hopefully it'll work for us. Car colors. What is this? Ben.
Title.
Title. Number of cars. Rachel.
Is the scale. I don't know.
Close.
No, I was talking about the
You're right. The numbers are the scales. So I'll give you a ticket for that because you are right. What are the actual words number of cars, Nick?
The y-axis label.
Y-axis label. Beautiful. Damien. Black, blue, red, silver, white.
I'm gonna exit label.
X-axis label. Great. All right, all together for a group ticket. What are these called?
Bars.
The bars. That would be a ticket for the whole group. All right, so let's see if we can move them around. So what you're going to do is come up, tap on the label you want. Make sure you wait to get that, your star, and then we're going to measure student names with our X-axis label. Okay, who wants to give it a shot? Nick? Y-axis label. Just get it as close as you can to the area. Okay, wait for that star thing. Okay. In between these two. There you go, now move back. You go here and get that. There you go. Where's our y-axis label? Where are you pointing at there? What's the y-axis label? You trying to do the test mark?
Yeah.
You got it. Good. And we got our x-axis label. Y-axis, thank you. Ben, title. Beautiful. Rachel, bars. Nice. Damien. Damien, why don't you just wait to get that star. You got it. You go with the scales. Think, look what you got left. Good job. All right, so then together, what's the x-axis? Just tell me what it is, Ben. This line down here, right? And our y-axis, Nick, you know this one good. Up and down. We can use Ben's trick with what the y looks like. I like that one. Okay, any questions about the parts of the graph? All right, now we're getting to the good stuff. Okay, here is a graphic organizer that you can use to collect your data. And what you're going to do, remember when Rachel told us our unexpected behavior was eating our math tools? And we're mathematicians right now, and these are part of our tools. So wait till we're all done with the activity. First step is going to be to open up your bag of M&Ms and get them all sorted and count how many goes in each color. How many yellows, how many reds, how many blues?
I got another thing with about the unexpected behavior.
Okay,
Do that with other people's evidence.
I like that one. Because we want to eat them at the end, right? So once you've separated all of your colors, write the total next to the total line for that color so that you can use it to make your graph. So we talked about learning target number 1, which is identifying the parts of the graph. We got that part. Now learning target number 2 was collecting data and then representing it on a graph. So right now we're doing the collecting data part. Once you've calculated all of your separate colors, go ahead and find your total. We're going to need that for our extension activity. Here's some graph paper so that you can represent your data on a bar graph. What's the first things you're going to draw on this chart? Our first part.
Title.
Title, okay. What's our title going to be? You can be whatever you want. Mine can be what's in the bag. Yours can be whatever you want it to be. And where does my title go, Rachel? At the very top. After I have my title, what's the next thing I'm going to draw? What's the next part of my bar graph, Damien? The X and Y axis. Ben, what am I gonna do next? You're on a good track. You started at what are you making?
What am I making?
What are you drawing right, or writing right now? What's that called?
X axis label.
X-axis label. And what was your first one?
Orange.
Orange. So it's gonna be the colors that are in the bag. And we might also want to label down here colors. Everybody with me? You're looking good. Once I've labeled my x-axis, Nick, what am I gonna label on these lines? Not the label of what it is, but what are these lines gonna be? What's that?
Numbers, scale.
The scale, good. And now looking at your data, look at your numbers. Can you do it by ones? Do you need to do it by fives? Do you have so many M&Ms that you have to do it by tens? What do we think? What are you gonna do yours by, Nick?
Maybe one,
You're gonna do ones? Okay.
no, but I did two.
You did twos? Okay. So you started off with 0 and then your first line's 2?
Yeah.
And Damien, what is gonna be our y-axis label? What are these numbers representing?
On number of M&Ms.
Number of M&Ms.
Well, you know, I'm not gonna argue.
So we've got our x-axis label, our y-axis label, our scale, our title. What are we missing? What's next?
Bars.
The bars, right, we need the bars. So Rachel, can you give me your data for your orange?
19.
19, wow, okay. So we're gonna start bottom, go up to 19. And that's our orange. Damien, can you tell me your data for your red?
2.
2. I have those colored pencils and markers and crayons. You want to color this
What are you doing? 8.
8. You guys are doing a great job representing your data. So I told you we were going to use that total number of M&Ms in our bags as our extension activity. So what we want to find out what the average number of M&Ms in a bag is. So how can using that number, what could we do? Nick?
We add up the total amount that everyone got, then divide it by how many numbers,
Perfect. And what's that called?
the average or mean.
The average or the mean? That was wonderful. All right, so you can start eating your M&Ms because your data is successfully represented on your bar graph or on your data collection chart. So you can start eating your M&Ms while we do this extension. Nick, can you tell me what your total number was?
60.
60? Give me 1 second, guys. We're almost done.